Welcome to LaGrange First Church of God. You are now listening to our weekly podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
Good morning. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you. Yeah. All right, question. Before I do that, for some of you who don't know, because I kind of like to lay low, that's more of my personality, I am Ben's wife, Kristen. So nice to meet you. If we haven't met, sometimes that happens. I bump into people and I don't know who you are, so I apologize, but now we've met. So before I get going, have any of you guys, sorry, I need to fix my hair. Didn't look in the mirror. Have any of you guys received hand-me-down or like a inheritance or like a gift from your mother, like a wedding dress or a wedding ring? Any hands up there? Okay, so a few. So I received this beautiful bathrobe. I call it a bathrobe. I don't know what you guys, house coat, blah, blah, blah. They're about the same. But my mother gave this to me after our first child was born. It was actually hers. She was wearing it, and I don't know why, but she felt compelled to give it to me, and I was like, okay. It was great. It kind of became a staple in our home. I think my family doesn't really see my clothes other than this. Poor Ben, right? But it's comfortable. Give me elastic waistbands. Anyways, yeah, it's always loaded with used Kleenex. Sorry, I know that's gross, but it's always there just in case for a little sniffle. Someone's got a leaky nose. Now, the second child, I honestly do not know why, but she gave me another house coat, and she was wearing it and said, I really want to give this to you, but Mom, you already gave me this one. I know, but this is a little different. It doesn't have a hood, so it kind of didn't become my favorite, because I like to kind of like encapsulate, you know? And plus, Ben keeps our house like, I don't know, 60, because my fingernails are blue at our house. And people that have been in our house and like, oh yeah, we're used to this, we like the cold, and they've walked out of our house and like, it's freezing in there. I'm like, I try to tell people. So when you come over, we just like throw comforters at you. Then she gave me another one after one of her trips she went on from the hotel or the company, and this one is so heavy. I just never really connected with it, but it stays in my closet because I feel bad if I get rid of it, my mom's feelings will be hurt. So it's there on one of the pegs. Feel free to come and look at them after. And then last year, when my in-laws were getting ready to move, their basement is really cold. So I would be down there with the kids while they're playing. And I noticed this on the back of the bathroom door, and I'm like, oh my goodness, perfect. So I just wrapped this little puppy around me. And it was like heaven. Again, maybe not for Ben, but for me. And I don't remember if she said you can have it, or I asked her if I could have it, but nonetheless, it's become my fourth bathrobe, and honestly, I wear it all the time, like a house coat. I wear it in the house like a coat because it's so cold. And the kids love to snuggle and burrow into it. So anyways, a hand-me-down, generation, and they keep wearing out. I wash them, and then I'm like, I don't know. The funk is still in there. I don't know how the kids want to curl up to me, but man, they're cozy. Yeah, I go to bed with those, and it keeps me warm, even underneath the lots of covers. So that's just to say we have hand-me-downs. If you've had a wedding dress or a ring or an inheritance or whatever, you know what that's like, and I don't want to get rid of them. I'm like, she'll probably never see them, but at the same time, it's kind of like, oh, there's Mom. She's still alive. All right, so I want to talk about the generations and what we pass down to the future generations. So in the past 118 years, I kind of want to look at that. And so the first generation is, we're just going to stay in the 118 years, is the GI generation. Anyone between 93 and 118 in here? No hands. Okay. Well, Let me just kind of give you a little synopsis so you know where they're coming from and how they raised the next generation. They were the children of World War I, and they were young during the Great Depression, so they probably were going to be thrifty when they became older. 19 million women filled out the home front labor force during World War II, and you might know most of that by like Rosie the Riveter, okay, thank you. They were loyal, they avoided debt, they grew up with modern conveniences, and then their retirement, you worked until you couldn't work anymore. And you hoped that your children, if you were nice to them, would let you live with them, or they would take care of you. And another thing was for an incentive was to pay off your house. And when you did that, you received pension or an annuity. So with that, we'll head into the mature and silent generation. Any 74 to 92-year-olds in here? Yeah. All right. So you will connect with this. Great. Again, this isn't I didn't come up with this for the generations. I did research. I love researching. I love history. I love to know why. Why are they doing it that way? Why is that created that way? How did they do it? I just wired that way, so I like to do that. Anyways, this is what I found in the research. The mature and silent generation stayed generally at home, the mothers, while the men pledged loyalty to a job for like 30, 40 some years. We don't see that a lot anymore. They were disciplined, self-sacrificing, cautious. There was a lot of post-war happiness, so possibly like peace and jobs, TV, rock and roll, cars. Social Security Act passed in 1935, so there was probably, I'm sure, if I was in that age bracket about to retire, I'm like, oh yeah, I get a break, I don't have to work until my knees give out or my feet give out. I don't have to rely on my children. You might think of like, I don't know, this came to mind, like Andy Griffith, Aunt Bee sitting on the porch, drinking some iced tea. Next, we've got the baby boomers. 1946, 1964, where are those hands? All right. That is the me generation. Supposedly, not my words. They saved the world, the revolutionaries, they ushered in free love and societal nonviolence. Most of their mothers were housewives. They were responsible for all child rearing. But women did start working outside the home in this era in record numbers. It was the first TV generation, first divorce generation that was acceptable. And as they got older, they were career climbers when they entered the job force. And retirement for this group means I'm going to go skydiving, I'm going to buy a second home in Florida, because, right, they worked their way up in the career, they made a lot of money. Now, again, stereotypical, not everyone was like this. But there are some, yes. All right, Generation X. Oh, who is out there with me? All right. Very individualistic, self-absorbed. I don't think so. We're like self-sacrificing. We were late to marry. I feel like I got married later on in life, after cohabitating, so after living together. That kind of became a norm in our generation. But we also started seeing that it was quick to divorce, many single parents. And I'm sure I can think of that as I go back into like middle school. You started seeing all that. All values are relative and must tolerate all people. Probably have changed jobs at least 7 times. I have. You were raised by career and money-conscious boomers amidst societal disappointment and governmental authority and the Vietnam War. Now, I do want to say this. Some of you, probably most of you are raised by baby boomers. Some of you are raised by mature and silent, like my parents are in the mature and silent, so I may have had like some of you might have little different perspectives depending on who raised you, right? In your retirement, I mean, my dad has told me this multiple times that Social Security may not be there for us, and what's our plan? Kind of a little scary, but nonetheless, that's kind of what's in the back of our minds. And then, let's go to the next one, is the millennials, who we've been talking about a lot. Where are they? Okay, oh, we've got quite a few here. Welcome. All right. Hey, you guys are like driven and bold. Like, I work with almost all millennials, and I'm like, they don't need me, little old piddly me 42-year-old. Like, they know what they're doing. They got their act together. They've got a vision. They're optimistic, focused. They were nurtured by omnipresent parents who are really involved, really there. But there is a feeling of enormous academic pressure that you have to have that degree or and put yourself in debt. And hopefully find a job to pay it off. They've been told over and over again, it's just a general, okay, how special they are and expect to be treated that way. The world is not a safe place. They saw 9/11, right? They don't live to work. They enjoy some free time, which is a good thing, right? And they do not know the world without computers. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we got our computer, I was like 4th grade or something. My brother was nerd, computer nerd. And we had this thing, it was like, this is amazing. All right, Gen Z, boomlets, 2001 to present. So they're like the 18 years old and below. Any of those in here? All right, good. I know you guys want to raise your hand. You want to be noticed. All right, see you back there. This generation is larger than the boomers, okay? So think of boomers, 55-year-old and up. $51 billion was spent between tweens every year, with additional $170 billion spent by parents and family members directly for them. So basically, a summary is all that money is just feeding them like toys and electronics, sports. We're in there right now. Got to rein that in. Tweens would be 8 to 12 years old, and then elementary school age, 35% have video games, maybe even more. I felt like it was more. And 4 million with their own cell phone. This was interesting. I never heard of this one, the KGOY. This is kids growing older, younger. In 1990, an average age of children playing Barbies was 10. I was like 12 years old, and yeah. But now it's 3 years old. So, I mean, that just astonishes me. So the point being is, I want to show you, as the generations keep going, right, it seems like they're getting more selfish, at least from a general perspective, right? And so I want to point out, even further back is Israel and the generations of the Israelites and their journey and what we can learn from them, because honestly, it's like, there's a little phrase and I can't think of it right now, but it's no different than, it hasn't changed. We're still the same, we're humans, and so, it seems like a culture, and you've seen this over in Europe and the Roman culture and all of that, and eventually it just crumbles, and then it gets rebuilt, and it crumbles. So it's just part of the cycle. Not to be Debbie Downer, but all right, let's look at ancient Israel. If you've been going to Sunday school the past, how long has it been? I don't know, like almost a year, it seems like. We've been studying the Israelites and their journey. So Abraham, he was anointed. God made a covenant with him and the Jewish people. God told Abraham that he would give them the land of Canaan, also known as the Promised Land, to his offspring. So he would be involved. It wouldn't be someone else. It would be from his body that the generations to come would take this Promised Land. They also, God tells Abraham that his descendants will be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years, and this is in Genesis 12 and 15. You can read that. I don't know about you, but I'm like, that may or may not happen. I don't know. I probably won't. Well, if it does, I won't be here anyways, so good luck. So then we see Jacob. And Jacob has 12 sons. And these 12 sons end up being the 12 tribes of Israel. But Jacob has one son that the brothers disliked. And so and maybe you guys remember this, Ben talked about that, but they basically sold him into slavery. He went to Egypt, and he stayed there. He rose up in the ranks and had favor with the Pharaoh and I guess their kingdom. Well, there was a famine going on where Jacob and his sons were living. Jacob thought, oh, Joseph, my son is dead. However, long story short, Joseph reveals himself to his father and says, hey, we've got grain stored up. Come on down, move the family. Let's be reunited. So they make that journey north down into Egypt, and they live there and become part of that culture. And they lived there for, I didn't write down a number of years, but a new king ends up coming to power. And what happens is, he doesn't know, generations have passed, he doesn't know really anything about the Jews and Joseph and their story and how they came to be there. But he notices that the women are just like boom, 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 putting out a lot of children. And and he's like, whoa, they're multiplying in droves. We've got to do something or they're going to take over. And so he assigns taskmasters over the Jews. So these Egyptian taskmasters, boom, you're my slave with the little whips. And, there's more to it about not having as many children, trying to decrease that number. However, it became true with the covenant that God made with Abraham is that they were slaves. And that 400 years started, okay? So you picture 400 years. I don't know about how long has America been? 200 or 200 years? Seems like that's always the case, 200. I'm sorry, I don't have that fact, but help me out. So just think, another 200 years, all right? And think of all the generations. I only named like 118 years, what we did earlier. Just think about that, right? So much has happened. So much life has happened. Heartache, joy. So keep that into perspective. We're at 400 years. Moses, I've got a pointer, hold on. Moses, all right. Oh yeah. Okay, so, and this is Ben. Right? Okay. He's got thick skin, so. All right. Yeah, so up here in Hebron, that's where, when I go back to Jacob, had come down there and then settled here in Egypt, okay? So Moses was here in Egypt, and God spoke to him and said, hey, I want you to go and lead the Jews out of Egypt, okay? I want you to go from here to Egypt, and I want you to go all the way down through the desert and up here, and then it's up here, but I want you to cross over and take this whole land here. And this is where the 12 tribes, the sons of Jacob, their lands would be allotted, and that's where that's the promised land, okay? And that would become known as Israel. You would think they would just go right up there, but that's for another story. That's another day. Don't have time to get into that. All right, so Moses is like me, like I'm slow of speech, like I can't do this. So God's like, okay, I'll give you an assistant. Someone will go with you, who can speak for you. That's how I feel like Ben and I, like he can talk all he wants. I'll just sit back. Don't let me talk. But hey, he put me up here today, so must trust me. All right, so what happens is he goes in, you guys are familiar with the plagues that we've heard about. So all, the Jewish people saw all that, what God had done to get them out of there. And then they go and, they walk through here and the Red Sea opens and they walk through that. And I mean, I'm just trying to picture myself having Corbin and Reagan and Ben and we're on our little caravan and we're just looking at the water oh my goodness, God parting the Red Sea. I would think I would just be like, God, just falling flat on my face, you're amazing. This is awesome, right? No, 3 days out of their journey, it says in Exodus 15, and you can read this, the Egyptians were complaining and grumbling because the water was bitter. They were like, you would bring us out here. We were better as slaves. Up there, we had clean water. We had food. We had a bed. We were in one spot. I mean, picture, if you do watch the news, so you've seen caravans, so you know kind of a little small visual of what that looks like. All right? 2 months out of Egypt. There's no food. We're hungry. Complaining and grumbling. Now, what makes it even harder is you would think as adults typically, okay, we can tough this out a little bit, but then you have your kids. I'm hungry, Mommy. I want a snack. I mean, just think of that, just grating on you, I can't deal with it. I might be different. I don't know. It just would grate on me. But again, the complaining and grumbling. And through the scripture, that journey in the 40 years, I mean, it's just jam-packed with complaining and grumbling, and I'm like, man, you guys are irritating me. Get it together. You just saw what God did. But you know what? I've become convicted after I've been studying this over and over again, and I put myself in their shoes, and I started thinking, ooh, yeah, I call my sister, on my way to work and then on my way home, and we just I complain and grumble about my day, being oh, I don't know what to cook for dinner. I mean, I do it. Or God hasn't given me this, or why is he doing this? I've become very convicted, even though, it might be small, but it's still complaining and grumbling, even though we know through his word what he's done. Anyway, so Moses sins. God says, hey, Moses, you're not going to see the promised land. You didn't trust me. You didn't obey. That's another story of truth that we can share. But he says, Joshua, I'm going to send Joshua into the promised land. He's going to take them over. And so Joshua agrees to take that leadership role. I don't know who would want to be the leader of this. I mean, they're just setting themselves up for we know. Remember, the Jews were ready to stone Moses. But God tells Moses to appoint the leader, which is Joshua. And there was going to be danger heads. So on that map, when they're going up, there was all these established little cities, right, and kingdoms. Not Israel, but other ones. And so they knew that. They were on feet. They were on a caravan. They were carrying their tents. They were carrying their church, the temple, right? They have all this stuff, little kids, older people, disabled, I'm sure. I mean, think of the whole scope of a population making this caravan. And so there was danger ahead. These people had already been established, right? They're going to have chariots, great horses. They're going to have everything they need. And here comes Joshua and the people. And it says that they, in Deuteronomy 1, that the Jews were irritated, complaining, and grumbling. In fact, most of the Jews refused to go and rebelled against the Lord. They went home, it says, and they grumbled in their tents, which would be like our homes. Do you find yourself doing that? You go home. They're like, the Lord hates us. We're going to lose. Do you see what's ahead of us? Do you see these people? Maybe they're huge. They have all this technology, for their day and age. But, and this past generation, they did this to us. So there's a lot of blaming, a lot of complaining and grumbling. In spite of what they saw God do, the Jews did not trust. So God, he was angry. I mean, think about your children, right? Or grandchildren, or niece and nephews, or cousins, and you're like, stop. Do not go in that room. They keep going, and you're like, and it just keeps, you know the whole thing, right? Okay. He was angered by their me focus. It was about them. They weren't like, hey, God, you told us, you promised. And they can walk boldly into that. But they were scared. We're humans, right? And we get scared and afraid. And that's why we need each other to encourage and push each other. But that's not what was happening. God called them out. He said, you're evil. And this generation, you're not going to enter the promised land. The babies, though, that know nothing, they'll enter it. They'll take the land. And I don't say all this to be doom and gloom. I really don't. It's just we have to see, we have to learn. If we don't learn and we don't apply that, we're fools. Why are we here? So let's go to the next one. So today's Mother's Day, but think of yourself, women, as moms, as sisters, aunts, what else? Grandmas, the whole kit and caboodle being a female. Think about what these women were doing, right? They were caring for their household. This was their role. Childbearing during this caravan journey. They were preparing music. They were preparing temple offerings. They were in charge of the agricultural work and making clothes. I mean, that's a lot. And then they didn't just probably have one child. For majority, they probably had like 10, 12. I mean, the list goes on. So just let that mull over. And think about their journey out of Egypt for 40 years, okay? I'm 42, and I think about all that's kind of transpired in my 42 years and thinking about like caravanning for 40 years, I'm like, whoa. And knowing like there's a promised land, okay? And just the different nuances of everyday life that you deal with. People you don't like, maybe a new birth, lots of things, good and bad, that they had to look at. Go to my next one. So if you can then think about, we talked about the generations of our past 118 years, how it seems to have gotten more selfish. You think about the generations of the Jews and how it seems like it's just, again, more selfish. For the next one. I want to read this before I go into that, but in Judges. Judges 2, verse 10, okay? This is towards like, I think they've crossed over now on their journey. It says, this is to the Jews, right? After that whole generation had been gathered to their fathers, another generation grew up, who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. Think about that. They didn't know who the Lord was. These were the Jews. This is their God, their one and only God, and they knew nothing about them. Now think about how that happens. Then the Israelites did evil in the eyes of the Lord and served the Baals, which would be foreign gods or gods other than our God. They forsook the Lord, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of Egypt. They followed and worshipped various gods of the peoples around them. They provoked the Lord to anger because they forsook him and served Baal and Ashtoreths. And then you see, like, he kind of just says, fine, have it your way. You think you can do this on your own? You don't need me? You want to serve these other things? Go for it. And God gives them over. His hand of favor and protection came off, and we see that, I mean, they just face heartache, right? Because they want to do it their way and not God's way. It's not easy. So think about your last, and men too, think about your last 90, 60, 30, 18 years as a daughter, sister, niece, aunt, mother, grandmother, great-grandmother. Some of you have lived in the same house your whole life. Some of you have lived in multiple homes in different states or countries. In this journey of your life, what have you seen? You've seen love, new life, marriage, divorce, death. So much already you've seen. and some gray hair. It's like, what's happening? But as you think about this timeline, I think where you want to go is, what women in your life, why are you here today? Is there someone in your life that told you about Jesus, or maybe they didn't tell you about Jesus, but they drove you to church and dropped you off so you could hear about Jesus? Was it a grandma? Was it, I don't know, a teacher, a next door neighbor? Who told you about Jesus? And why do you think they told you about Jesus? Was it just because it's the right thing to do, or was it because they need to know the Lord because they're going to be the ones to tell my grandchildren or my great-grandchildren or great-great-great-great-grandchildren? So think about it. Who influenced you? I was thinking, a lot of women may not feel like, hey, I don't know. Like, I'm the type of person, I want to know everything. And if I don't know it, I'm not doing it. And I don't want to be pressured into doing it, so don't make me do it, Ben. But you, and you might be like, I'm having trouble just getting them out the door. Like, what can I do? And I was thinking about my mom, okay? And not to make this about me, because I know I'm from Generation X. It's not about me. If anyone in here might relate, they have children or grandchildren who have watched Teen Titans Go, and they sing that song, "It's all about me, it's all about me." Anyone know that one? Okay. Oh, we've got some work to do. We didn't get a gold star for parenting. We're working on it. But yeah, so my mom is a very shy, quiet person. She really didn't give her opinion. In fact, at home, a lot of times we would ask her a question. She's like, "Go ask your father." Now I'm like, I think she was just trying to get out of it. There was a lot of pressure from my dad. But she, you know what? She took us to church. When we got home, I honestly can't remember doing Bible study where she taught me this, the word, but she took me to church. She said, she taught me truths in here that a child could understand, right? Like, so my brother Kyle and I, total opposites, and we just irritated each other so much. And he would always get to the vacuum before I could get the vacuum because we had to clean on Saturdays. And somehow I got stuck with dusting, which took longer. And it was like he was always a step ahead. Did you have one of those siblings? And you're like, oh, I didn't think quick enough. And so we would spar and get mad at each other. And, my mom, she would make us look at each other and say, you can't fight. Hey, Kyle, I want you to say, "I'm sorry" to Kristen. And why are you sorry? Would you please forgive me? I love you. I love you unconditionally in spite of everything. Exactly. And I think that's done a lot for me, but she did those little things, right? She took me to Awana. She took me to youth group. She dropped me off. And she had an allergy, and sometimes it would bug me because I'm like, I want my mom to be there. I want her to be involved, but she's not really a social person. But she made sure we were there. And she had allergies, so she couldn't do a lot of stuff with people who had dogs and cats, which a lot of people did. And a lot of times she would fall asleep at night reading to us, which frustrated me, but I do that now too. But when I was there, I remember my Sunday school teachers. I can't picture their faces, but I can see their hands doing like the felt board with the little characters and moving them around and telling me Bible studies. I can picture and remember singing, "I will never march in the infantry, ride in the cavalry, shoot the artillery." But I'm in the Lord's army, right? I mean, those songs, obedience is the very best way to show that you believe, doing exactly what the Lord commands and doing it diligently, maybe. I mean, I learned that song like when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I still can recall that when I'm in situations. So I want to tell you is you don't have to be a theologian. You can just drive the car and drop the kids off, okay? You can simply tell them, God loves you. At night when I put the kids to bed, there's nothing left much, right? there's not much left. It isn't pretty. And it's like I wiggle my way in between them. Bad move, because I always fall asleep because they're so cuddly. But I say, Corbin and Reagan, I want you to follow Jesus with all your heart. Please do not abandon him. And sometimes maybe my vocabulary might be a little too beyond, but I'm like, they'll catch up. I want you to follow God. He is the only way, the truth, and the life. I mean, and we pray. Those simple things, because there's only so much time in your day. I wish I could do like this beautiful Bible study with them, and I don't know, that they knew like 20 verses. But right now, I can only do so much, right? Sometimes you just got to do what you can do. And in the car rides, we're talking about God. I'm like, look at what God did. Look at that tree. How awesome is that? God created that. Tell me about, what do you think lives in that tree? Yeah, the birds. Who created the birds? Those are simple things. And you know what? It says in Scripture, in Deuteronomy, let me read this to you, because again, I was like, okay, Lord, you get it. Moms have a hard job, and if they're working or they're taking care of other family members, it's a lot. And we only have 2, and I'm just like, oh my goodness. For you who have more than that, I don't know how honestly you do it. Ben and I are just like, hair is like coming out. We're just high-stress people, I think. In Deuteronomy, let's see here. Yeah, you got to kind of have a little bit of a chill. We don't have that. We don't have that going for us. All right, it says in Deuteronomy 6, 5 through 9, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you drive in the car, because that's where we spend a lot of time, right? And when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands. Bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Listen, I'm a working mom. Sometimes I feel like a single mom because Ben's position, he's got to be kind of on call, right? But God set me up for that, and I'm good. But I found peace when I read in Deuteronomy. I mean, still, I struggle, right? Because you love your kids and you want them to know Jesus. If we don't teach them, we're going to be just like the Jews. They never knew the Lord or what he had done. If you don't tell them, no one's going to tell them, right? Or someone's going to tell them about the Baals, about the other gods, right? And to be honest, listen, I'd be so happy just sitting in the back row right there. But God's been putting on my heart. I watch the news all the time. I don't know if there's any other news buffs out there. Love it. But if you watch the news and you see what's going on, I mean, my heart's breaking. I'm like, why is this happening? It has to stop. Who's going to stop it? And then I looked at myself. I'm like, what are you doing, Kristen? What are you doing? Yeah, I'm tired, and I like my me time and to be wrapped up in my little cuddly robe. And I know, like, when you have children at this season of life, younger, it's a little bit hard. That is kind of your ministry right there. But I want to challenge you guys, not just the women, but the men. What are you doing to change it so the next generation knows? I'm saying listen a lot, but we love that our children can be active and involved in sports and other extracurricular activities, but if that takes precedent over God, what's going to happen to the next generation? And you know what? I get it, because sometimes our hearts don't care. I get it. And you know what I do? God, my heart is blah. Change me, Lord, from the inside out. I just feel lukewarm. It's so easy. I'd rather go shopping buy, certain things and watch these shows I like instead of reading your word. I'm just being honest. Sometimes that happens. God, forgive me. Help me. I'm responsible. You're responsible for our next generation, for today's generation. And I feel bad. I don't want to put a burden on anyone, but it's the truth. And I'm not an outspoken person. Ben's the only person I tell my truths to. Really, because I just am like, I don't want to get rejected by people. Ooh, he likes it, I guess. You know what He's a glutton for punishment. I'm like, I don't want to put it out there, because once I put it out there, it's like I'm on the, people are going to be watching. But man, I'm convicted. God, help me. So today, if there's one thing you can think of in your life, you know what? I have some nieces and nephews who are like my children. I helped raise them. I was 10 years old when the first one was born. I love them. And I would pray for them. I would teach them, encourage them. But as they've gotten a little older, I'm like, oh, nerdy Aunt Kristen, they don't want to hear about God from me. But I try to put it in a little bit, you know what I mean? And sometimes I'm like, forgive me, God, because they're still I need to be encouraging them. I need to be lifting them up in prayer, and you get, sidetracked. It happens. And thank goodness, because I'm really hard on myself, and Ben really is like, just calm down. It's all right. God's got it. You don't have to stress out. So that's really, I wanted to encourage you guys today, because if we don't step up, we're going to have what God said. And you know what? He's going to take his hand in his favor, not because he doesn't love us, but because he's like, okay, that's what you want. Go ahead. Go ahead. And I think we're seeing some of that, right? And it's hard and it's scary, because you don't want to give your opinion. You don't want to be rejected. I want to be liked. It hurts. But if I don't do something, we're going to see what happens. And I don't want to go through that. So make a small step today. Say an encouraging word, a verse. Bring them to church. If you don't know how to teach them, bring them here. There are Sunday school teachers. There's chairs waiting for little bodies to come in and sing, Jesus, I love you. So if they don't hide it in their heart, it says, hide your word in my heart so I won't sin. Thank you. Sorry. We have to hide his word, or we're just going to go off, and we're not going to know God. And it's easy to do. I was watching this movie, and maybe someone knows the name of it. I forgot to write it down. So in closing, I'm going to share this with you. Yeah, Reagan's softball schedule with a little nail polish that she was doing my nails, but I got it on here. It's funny, because this week I was like, I know it's going to be kind of rough. I know it. And it was like I couldn't get any downtime. Literally last night, Reagan decided to, she was just attached to me. When you have one, just oddly attached, and was like, I can't break away. I can't get 2 minutes. Ben didn't feel good. Corbin was up till 10. I was like on the couch. Then I wake up. It was 2. I'm like, oh my goodness. Memorize this. Anyways, this is a movie about a college boy, and the professor is Robert Redford, and the boy is from Spider-Man, who's British. Okay. Okay. Anyways, and he's like, the boy's he kind of backed away. He was in I don't know, politics or something, whatever that course is. And the professor's like, why have you backed away? He's like, you sure have a lot to say. Why aren't you doing anything about it? They banter back and forth. And then Robert Redford says to him, a $90,000 Benz is no good if the streets and highways are decayed, becoming a third world country. If all your rants about the world, religion, and politics are true, if things are really as bad as you say they are, how can you enjoy the good life? How can you sit in that chair and keep talking and not do anything? Rome is burning, son, and the problem is not with people who started this. They're past irredeemable. They're gone. The problem is with us. The problem is us, who just fiddle, who try to maneuver around the edges of the flame. There is a fire out there. We need to jump into the fire, and it's going to hurt, and it's not going to be comfortable. I stand here just with you, another human being who's got their own struggles. Who's got a marriage, who's got children, who's got parents, who's got a job. You got to make it all work, right? When do you fit in the other stuff? But God commands us, we have to teach the other generation, or they'll never know.